I unlocked a haunted laptop. 2 Vatican's cursed library. 3 sinister secrets revealed. Every night at Maggie's diner, the flickering fluorescence casts shadows that dart across the linoleum floor like whispers of the past. Jess, bone-tired from her shift, wipes down the tables, every stroke of the rag filled with exhaustion. Bills hang around her neck, a noose tightening with each unpaid letter. The thought of her son, Ethan, slumped on the couch, his face pale and withdrawn, sends a chill up her spine. Her heart races as she fights to provide him a future better than this. But tonight, something unusual awaits. A battered laptop sits abandoned in a corner booth, its body covered with a peeling sticker emblazoned with a faded emblem of a long-lost Vatican library. Curiosity consumes her as she lifts the device. A tingling sensation races down her arm, almost like a warning. She takes the laptop home, each creak of her apartment floor echoing the uncertainty gripping her. As she powers it up, the screen flickers ominously, sending icy tendrils of dread curling through her gut. Messages scroll across the screen, disjointed and terrifying tales of missing children, sinister hauntings, and an ancient curse tied to her quiet Maplewood neighborhood. Jess's heart thunders in her chest. The tales almost feel tied to something lurking just out of sight. Damn it, this is just the stress, she mutters, shaking her head, attempting to drown out the echoing whispers that seem to seep from the very walls. But the laptop hums with a life of its own, and suddenly the hairs on the back of her neck stand stiff. Something is off in the air, a strange dampness that seeps into her bones. The shadows flicker, almost alive, curling at the edges of her vision. Paranoia begins to seep in. What if she and Ethan aren't alone? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Jess calls the local police, but their eyes glass over with indifference, dismissing her frantic explanations as mere stress of a mother. Maplewood has never had any trouble, they say, their lack of urgency sending a chill through her. Unbeknownst to her, layers of complicity run deep in her peaceful community. As her heart pounds in her chest, she feels the noose tighten around her family. A feeling of isolation gnaws at her. Ethan starts acting strange. The carefree boy she once knew is now sullen, jumpy, eyes darting around as if he senses the shadows creeping into their lives. In the midst of growing turmoil, she silently berates herself. Why is every bump in the night now magnified? Their neighbor's unwelcoming demeanor sends a shiver down her spine. A seemingly innocent chat unveils alarming truths. A family cursed, linked to rituals she can hardly comprehend. The laptop isn't merely a device. It holds the key to something dark and hungry. Her own neighbors, the ones she trusted, seem to wrap around her like a tightening noose. As Jess races against time, she realizes, with a gut-wrenching horror, that she must face these sinister secrets head-on. The darkness pressing against her home whispers promises and threats, and Ethan is at the center of it all. The shadows lurking at the edges of her life are more than figments of her imagination. They are alive and aching to collect their debt. Will Jess confront the witching darkness to save her son, or will she surrender to the very monsters stalking them all along? The curse awaits, hungry and relentless, preparing to claim its next victim. The laptop sits on the kitchen table like a ticking bomb, its screen casting a pale blue glow against the grimy walls. Jess can't shake the feeling that it knows her. With every click, the stories unravel into horrific details that threaten to engulf her. Missing children, faces twisted in terror, their eyes pleading beyond the screen. Ethan's voice pulls her back, broken and small. "Mom!" He stands in the doorway, fingers trembling as he clutches his favorite toy, a faded bear that once offered comfort. But now, the bear looks ominously tainted, as if shadows have gnawed at its stitches. His eyes search hers, a reflection of confusion and fear. "We need to get rid of it." His statement hangs in the air, heavy with certainty. Jess feels a rush of dread. She secretly hopes it's just his imagination running wild. No. It's just a laptop, she replies, forcing conviction into her tone. But the very word sends a jolt through her. Just a laptop? What had it revealed? Ethan shakes his head, stepping closer, his breath shallow. It talked to me, Mom. I heard it. Her heart sinks. What do you mean it talked to you? He stares, unblinking. It said things, bad things. An unshakable chill coils around Jess's spine. Too many stories of the curse, once contained in pages and forgotten behind closed doors, thrummed in the air. Had they been drawn here by now, that laptop as the key? The walls around them seemed to breathe, the paint peeling like decaying skin. Jess turns back to the screen, her fingers hovering over the keyboard. The laptop whirs to life, and she jumps, the noise cutting through the silence of her home. I can make it stop, she tells Ethan, her voice trembling. I'll close it, and it'll be fine. But as she types in a string of random letters, the screen flares with rage. Help me, it echoes, the words distorted and dripping with malice. The shadows twist in the corners, growing darker, spreading inch by inch. Mom! Turn it off! Ethan screams, his thin voice cracking. Jess fights the urge to obey. The sensation of icy fingers tracing her spine sends her heart pounding. She thunders on the keyboard, desperate for release, but every command is met with mockery. You have to pay a price. What price? She can feel it coming, that blanket of dread pulling tighter. The air feels heavier, oppressive, like a suffocating fog. With each passing moment, the room hums with anticipation. Shadows crawl deeper into their space, and for a terrifying moment, Jess swears she sees faces in them, distorted expressions smiling cruelly. No, no, she gasps. The walls seem to pulse, the laughter of unseen voices echoing through her mind. Are the neighbors already a part of this? Did they willingly sacrifice the children? She feels panic clawing at her throat, pushing her toward a breaking point. Mom! Ethan cries again. The sounds of their world are muffled, like they're submerged underwater. The whispers from the laptop swirl in her mind, clashing with her maternal instincts. Maggie's diner, the library, you must find it. The screen blares in a chilling frenzy of scrambled images. The laughter grows louder, mocking, wrapping around her like tendrils of smoke. Mom, do something! He urges, but Jess is frozen by the terror unfolding. She grips the back of a chair, nails digging into the wood, but it does nothing to fend off the encroaching darkness. The laptop howls, a piercing sound that rattles her bones. Ethan's cries turn to a primal scream, reshaping the air between them. That it, she has to make a choice. Will she brave the depths of the cursed library and confront whatever lurks within? Or does she risk everything to save her son, even if it means unleashing the horror that dwells beyond the screen? The shadows gather closer, their whispers clawing at the corners of her mind, eager to drag them beneath the earth. Jess realizes that time is running out. What if the curse's grip has already tightened around Ethan? What if they are already too late? The moment Jess glimpsed the laptop's screen flicker, her fingers stiffened. The blue glow pulsed like a heartbeat, each thud initiating a fresh wave of terror. Images flashed by children with hollow eyes, lost faces that reached out as though pleading for liberation. Jess had glimpsed them before. She recalled a town meeting where the locals spoke in hushed tones, always unsure, always fearful. Had they discussed the children? Amy and Kyle? The names swirled like a storm in her mind. Mom? Ethan's tiny voice trembled again, breaking her reverie. She turned slowly, feeling the space between them, like an unspeakable chasm filled with dread. The laptop chimed, a mocking sound that echoed in the kitchen. You can save them, it crooned, an unnerving intimacy laced in its tone. Her heart raced with horror. Or you can watch them slip away. Stop! She shouted at the machine, as if it could understand fear. Just stop! Exhaling sharply, she glanced over at Ethan. His bear, once a beacon of comfort, now gave off an unnatural air of sadness. The threadbare fabric seemed to writhe under dark influences. Mom, we have to leave! It's not safe here. Jess shook her head, the fear wrapping around her throat like a noose. Where do we go? We can't just leave, a clattering sound jolted her. The laptop screen darkened momentarily, then flickered back. Distorted faces glowered back at her, eyes wide, mouths stretched in silent screams. The library, they chanted. Mom! We have to go to Maggie's diner, Ethan urged, grabbing her hand, his grip surprisingly strong. A flicker of determination sparked within her own chest. Why, sweetie? Why there? Because it has all the answers. In that moment, the weight of despair pushed down on her. The kitchen shifted, shadows seeming to consume the walls. She could almost hear a sort of laughter, a ragged sound that reverberated through her bones, feeding on her fear. Her life, her decisions felt trivial compared to whatever dark fate awaited them. Groaning, she finally pulled Ethan's face close to hers. Listen to me. We're going to go. No distractions. Can you do that? Ethan nodded, wide-eyed and resolute. Promise me, Mom, nothing bad will happen. The laptop shrieked in protest as Jess tore the power cord from the wall. In that instant, the world around them warped. The lights flickered and the shadows writhed like serpents, hissing and darting, hungry for warmth, for breath. Run! Jess shouted, her heart pounding in sync with Ethan's erratic breaths. They raced toward the door, her hand clasping around the doorknob, but it wouldn't turn. Mom! It's locked! Ethan cried, panic spilling into his voice. She banged her palms against the wooden surface, the hunger of unseen forces pressing against her mind. Weren't doors meant to open? The determination to breach the threshold fought against the powerful pull of the shadows erupted behind them. Whispers twisted words around Jess's ears, a cacophony of lost souls in anguish. Then she remembered stories whispered at the diner about the library, about clues, maps, tales of darkness hidden between the dust and fear. Was it worth it? Could they truly escape this nameless place? Maggie's diner, Jess breathed, the name taking on a weight of its own. Ethan's eyes blazed with hope. With a surge of desperation, Jess grasped the knob, pouring whatever was left of her courage into the turn. This time it gave under her hand with a creak of uncertainty. Then, she yanked the door open and stumbled forward, pulling Ethan out into the darkened night. Glimmers of cold moonlight hung above, exposing the street lined with dilapidated houses that seemed to breathe. A weight had shifted, a moment of silence gripped the air, pregnant with possibilities. But shadows scampered along the edge of her vision, and the distant laughter echoed, a cruel reminder that their troubles were far from over. As they raced for the diner, the laptop's screech echoed in her mind. Come back, it beckoned. The price isn't paid. What were they truly running from? Were they escaping only to walk into a greater danger waiting in the dark? Jess's heart raced as dread settled deeper. What awaited them at Maggie's diner? Would they find answers or stumble upon something worse? The night pressed in close, the air thick with a sense of foreboding. Jess and Ethan sprinted down the cracked pavement, the sound of their feet pounding against the concrete mingling with the whispers of the night. Each gust of chilly wind rattled the branches of nearby trees like fingers scratching at the windows of their sanity. The diner loomed ahead, its neon sign flickering erratically. It felt alive, beckoning them even as it threatened. Mom, hurry! Ethan's breath came quick, his small legs pumping hard to keep pace. She felt the pull of darkness behind them, a weight that tugged at her very soul. I'm coming! She gasped, her heart pounding with desperation. The diner felt like a haven, but her instincts screamed otherwise. They reached the wooden door, its surface smooth yet ominous. Jess threw it open, and the familiar scent of coffee mixed with something rotten washed over her. The warm glow inside was almost comforting, but shadows lingered in the corners, slithering like dark serpents, waiting to strike. Maggie! She called, scanning the booths and counter for any sign of life. The diner was empty, but for a single flickering light above the kitchen door, casting uneasy shadows that danced mockingly. Ethan tugged at her sleeve, pointing toward a back room with a faded sign promising restrooms. We should check in there, Mom. The stories, they said they kept things inside. Things we might need. Her throat felt dry, but she nodded. Okay, let us go. They stepped cautiously over the threshold, a chill creeping over her skin as if the air was laced with apology and betrayal. Once inside, the dim light barely illuminated the cramped space. Walls lined with old newspaper articles told of disappearances and strange happenings in their town, lost children who had vanished without a trace. Jess shuddered at each headline. "What if it's true?" she whispered, involuntarily tightening her grip on Ethan's hand. "Look!" Ethan pointed at a battered chest tucked in the corner. It looked like it hadn't been touched in ages. Dust caked the latches, and a thick cobweb dangled down, shimmering in the weak light. Jess approached it cautiously, heart racing as if something were watching her, something not of this world. As she reached for the latch, the front door of the diner slammed shut with an earth-shaking thud, echoing through her bones. Jess jumped back, adrenaline surging through her. "Ethan!" She turned, only to find him staring, wide-eyed, at the kitchen entrance. What she saw sent chills coursing through her veins. A figure draped in shadow stood there, obscured by deep darkness. Its outline flickered intermittently in and out of existence, as if caught between dimensions. The whispers grew louder, morphing into a chorus of horrified shrieks. "Mom, we have to go!" Ethan yanked her arm, pulling her back toward the chest. "No, wait! We need to see what's in there." Panic surged as she ripped the latch open. The heavy lid creaked, and a fishy smell rolled out, acrid and vile. Papers overflowed, tattered remnants of stories that belonged to children, names, places, dates. One name stood out, written in frantic scrawls. Amy Kyle. Her heart dropped, and before she could process, Ethan gasped, "Mom, it's coming!" The figure surged forward, shadows distorting around it, growing taller and more defined. It reached out with a finger, long and skeletal, pointing directly at them. A piercing scream escaped Jess's lips. "Run!" The name on the paper faded as the weight of realization hit. It wasn't enough to escape what awaited them outside. Their past was woven into the fabric of this horror. They darted back into the main diner, but the door was flanked by shadow, pulsating, threatening to swallow them whole. "Mom, what do we do?" Panic consumed her. The air stilled just before the world outside erupted with blaring chaos, screeching sirens and howls, as if the town itself was responding to their fear. "What do we do?" Jess echoed, stricken by dread, her mind racing. The shadows tightened, and she needed to act fast. But when she turned back to Ethan, his eyes widened with terror. A revelation struck her. What if the diner held more than just clues? What if it was the last line of defense, but also the doorway to heavier nightmares? "Ethan, trust me." Jess's voice trembled. "We need to face this." And then, from the depths of the diner, a low, malevolent laugh echoed, the kind that promised they had only just begun to uncover the truth. What lay beyond the walls of this crumbling diner? Would they find salvation or plunge deeper into the abyss? The laughter curled through the diner like smoke, dark and intoxicating. Jess's heart raced, pounding against her ribcage like it wanted to escape. The shadows seemed to thicken around them, alive, pulsing with anticipation. "Mom, I don't like this," Ethan said, his voice wavering, barely more than a whisper. "I know, sweetheart," Jess replied, her mind racing. She pressed her back against the counter, the cool wood grounding her as the air turned stifling. "We have to find a way out." The figure in the kitchen didn't move closer, but Jess felt its presence like a weight upon her chest. She scanned the diner, a twisted maze of booths and hanging lights. Everywhere she looked, the dark form was begging her to turn away from the truth, from whatever lurked in that cursed back room. "Mom, what if we can't get out?" Ethan's voice cracked, and Jess felt her own resolve threatening to crumble. "No! We have to believe," she said with desperation. "That's how we'll get through this." Just as she turned to grab Ethan's hand, the lights above flickered once more, and she caught a glimpse of the figure. It had shifted, becoming more defined. A face began to manifest within the darkness, sunken eyes, hollow cheeks, twisted in malice. "Jess, it knows your name," Ethan choked out, terror straining his voice. "They're all trapped in here," she thought, suddenly understanding. The stories on the walls had not just been warnings. They were confessions of countless souls who didn't escape. Before she could process further, the figure raised its skeletal hand and pointed toward the chest still gaping open. The contents, those jumbled memories of lost children, seemed to shimmer with life, almost calling to her. Ethan, we have to look again. Maybe we can break the cycle, Jess urged, fighting the instinct to flee. Steeling herself, Jess approached the chest once more, her fingers trembling as she peered inside. She dug through the papers, panic rising as she read names that felt familiar and yet hauntingly wrong. There were dozens, each one a ghostly echo of a child's laughter snuffed out, lives unknowingly sacrificed to the shadow. Suddenly, a gust of cold wind blasted through the diner, rattling the windows like the chains of the damned. The lights flickered and dimmed, plunging the diner into a near-complete darkness, pierced only by the cold glow of the neon sign outside. Open! Jess felt Ethan clutch her sleeve tighter, his breath sharp and fast. Mom, we have to find a door. Not yet. Wait, she insisted, waving her hand back toward the chest. We can't just run if we leave without understanding. It'll only chase us. No. It'll get us. Ethan cried, but Jess felt a fierce determination igniting within her. The truth had to be there. It tied them to their presence, to the darkness itself. And then, as if the air itself shifted, one final tremor shook the diner, the lights flickering back momentarily to reveal the figure now mere feet away, its features grotesque and malicious, twisted like the very souls it had consumed. Face your deepest fear, a voice rasped from the depths of its being, echoing through the air, turning the hairs on Jess's arms to ice. Desperation clawed at her throat. Ethan! Grab that paper with the names! With a shaking hand, Ethan found a crumpled piece and thrust it into her palm just as the figure lunged forward, the shadows exploding in a cacophony of sound, agony, and despair. And then, amidst the chaos, Jess saw something flash across the page, a luminous connection, a name intertwining with her life, a key to the truth. As the air thickened with their fear, and the very walls seemed to breathe around them, Jess clasped the paper with newfound strength. Ethan! It's now or never! But was it too late? The darkness surged, and Jess knew whatever they found in the heart of this nightmare would decide their fate, her son's, and her own. What dark secrets lay hidden within that paper? Would it unlock the key to their escape, or would they be forever entangled in its curse? The figure lunged, a black tide of terror and despair crashing against them. Jess felt Ethan's small body shake beside her, his grip tightening painfully around her arm. Mom! He screamed, raw fear bursting from his throat. The shadows writhed, pulling back, revealing the twisted landscape of the diner once more, but the atmosphere was thick with dread, a palpable dread that made her skin crawl. Whatever was happening, it sought to trap them in a web of nightmares. Jess clutched the crumpled paper with desperate fingers, her eyes darting from the haunted chest to the advancing figure. We need to read it! She shouted above the rising cacophony, trying to drown out the cries of the lost children that seemed to echo through the space. Ethan nodded, his face pale. Mustering every ounce of courage he had, he peered down as Jess unfolded the paper. As the words came into view, a cold terror gripped her heart. The name etched onto the page glowed faintly in the dim light, Margaret Clarkson. Like a punch to the gut, Jess recognized it immediately. Margar, Jess began, but Ethan cut her off. Mom! It's behind you! With a swift motion, Jess pivoted, only to encounter the face of the figure. Its empty eyes bore into her soul. She could feel its breath, rancid and suffocating. It opened its mouth, revealing a darkness so deep it seemed to swallow all light. Suffer like she did, it hissed, the sound slithering through the room like a snake in the grass. The name on the paper swam in her mind. Margaret Clarkson. The stories, the laughter, hadn't there been a child's voice? She remembered now. The stories her grandmother told her about the legend of a girl who vanished in an abandoned school nearby, just a block away from this cursed diner. Ethan, listen. Jess tried to focus, breathless. If we can find her, if we can discover what happened, we can break this curse. But Ethan was pale, eyes wide. What if we can't? What if we become one of them? The lights flickered again, and this time, they began to fade one by one, plunging them deeper into darkness. Panic clawed at Jess, but she pushed it aside, fueled by the hope that they might have a chance. "Fine!" she yelled defiantly into the abyss, looking into the figure's sunken eyes. "What do we need to do? Show us." The figure hesitated, its expression shifting into one of sinister amusement. The laughter returned, echoing through the diner, reverberating off the walls like the clanging of an iron bell. "Find her and face the truth," it rasped again, and in that moment, everything changed. The shadows around them began to swirl, pulling Jess and Ethan toward the chest that seemed to pulse with a life of its own. As they were propelled closer, Jess fought against the tide, straining to keep her feet on the ground. "Read it, Ethan! There has to be more." Desperation fueled their haste. Ethan, trembling, gazed down again, deciphering the words as they struggled to hold their ground. "Mom, there's an address," he shouted. "It says Maple Street. That's near where we live." His voice trembled with hope and fear, conflicting emotions spilling forth like cracks in the surface of a dam. "Then that's where we need to go," Jess resolved, but just then, without warning, the lights went out completely, swallowing them whole in an overwhelming darkness. The figure's whispered laughter echoed into the silence, a taunting reminder of the path ahead. "What if it's a trap?" Ethan whispered, fear lacing his voice. Jess bit her lip, heart hammering in uncertainty. "Then we deal with it," she whispered back fiercely. And as the shadows closed in, a chill wrapped around them, making every breath a battle. They had to find the truth waiting for them on Maple Street. But would it be a place of salvation or horror? The diner quaked with unyielding anticipation as the walls seemed to vibrate with life. Whatever awaited them there could be their only chance, or their doom. "Are we ready?" Jess asked, her voice trembling. But even as she spoke, the figure loomed closer, its presence promising unfathomable darkness ahead. The laughter intensified, echoing through the diner walls, stitching the bonds of fear even tighter. And as Jess regained her courage, a thought struck her, a new, terrifying question clawing its way to the forefront of her mind. What awaited them on Maple Street, and at what cost would they discover it? The darkness swallowed them whole, a suffocating void closing in like a vice. Jess felt Ethan quiver beside her, a fragile whisper of hope buried beneath fear. "Mom, I can't see," he gasped, his voice cracking. "Just hold on tight. We're going to get out of here," Jess stammered. She shut her eyes tightly, focusing on their escape. But no steady ground formed beneath her feet. Both the shadows and the air were alive, swirling with dark promises. Then, a soft glow pierced the pitch black. It flickered ominously, reminiscent of candlelight, but it felt wrong, eerily wrong, like a smile from a predator. Jess squinted into the light, and fear shackled her heart when she realized it emerged from the crumpled paper. The edges crinkled, curling up like mocking fingers. "Mom, it's moving!" Ethan yelped with alarm, his grip tightening further. As Jess inched closer, the name Margaret Clarkson began to glow even brighter, illuminating shadowy shapes lurking around them. Outlined silhouettes danced and twisted, laughing silently as they shifted in the ethereal light. "Enough! Show us the way!" Jess shouted defiantly, as a tremor rumbled from her chest. The darkness shuddered, the figures froze momentarily, taken aback by her sudden courage. Then, like a wicked game, they began to spin again, a macabre dance closing in with ghoulish cheer. Jess's eyes darted around, scanning for an escape, desperate for a sign. "Maple Street!" she shouted again, her mind racing. "It's close. We need to find it." The flickering light surged, and silence fell heavy, broken only by Jess's ragged breaths. Suddenly, the diner's walls warped, twisting like living flesh. The laughter echoed again, but twisted with jagged glee. Awake in the past, the figure's voice slithered back, colder than before. Shadows bent and coiled around the edges of Jess's mind, forming pictures of a schoolyard dusty, overgrown, haunted by remnants of lost laughter. "Let us go," Ethan urged, pulling her forward, through the haze that hung thick in the air. Just as Jess took a step, The spectral laughter crescendoed, exploding in a chaotic rush around them. "Mom!" Ethan shrieked as a shadow lunged toward him. A sinuous form reached out, wrapping around his ankle, dragging him down. "Help! Ethan!" Panic surged and time stretched thin. Jess dove to grab Ethan's arm, fingers slipping in the ethereal mist like water. "I've got you!" She pulled with all her strength, sweat trickling down her brow. With a sudden slashing sound, the restraint snapped. Ethan tumbled back into her arms, gasping. They stumbled, eyes wide with terror. "Don't look back," Jess ordered, tearing her gaze from the writhing void that craved them, pushing ahead. Strangled whispers clawed at her consciousness, a cacophony of voices jeering and wailing. "Just keep moving!" Ethan's panicked breaths filled her ears as they surged forward, following the glow of the paper nursing their desperate hope. The shadows lashed out, snapping like hungry dogs but missed, sliding back into the abyss. Jess felt their chilling presence on her skin, like 1,000 eyes watching, waiting, and then it hit her, like a slap in the face. The truth they must face wasn't just about finding Margaret Clarkson. It was about the secret buried deep within their own family. What did she know? What did she hide? The glow brightened, revealing a door, a heavy wooden entrance that seemed to vibrate with whispers of the past. "Is this it?" Ethan quivered. Jess hesitated, breathless. They were so close yet so very far. Was this where the horror began, or where hope resided? Tears stung her eyes, blending with panic. "Mom, do we have to open it?" he murmured, a tremor in his voice that mirrored her thoughts. Everyone held secrets. The dim light of realization flickered in Jess's mind. "Yes, but what if it—" Before she could finish, an overwhelming pressure gripped her. The shadows surged, pulling them toward the door with simmering rage. "Open it, Jess! We're running out of time!" Ethan cried out, but she stood frozen, anguish flooding her veins. What awaited them behind that door? Acceptance of their fate? Or an uncovering of terror that would shatter everything they believed in? Gathering her strength, Jess placed a shaking hand on the knob. One choice led to unknown horrors. The other the chilling grasp of oblivion. "Are you ready?" she whispered to Ethan, the question hanging heavy in the air as the shadows battled for dominance, whispering promises of darkness. But she had to know. They both did. And as she twisted the doorknob, every breath seemed impossibly fragile, like glass ready to shatter either into freedom or utter despair. The door creaked open, but the darkness beyond whispered one unsettling truth. Would stepping into Maple Street be a leap into the abyss or the dawning of their salvation? The door groaned as it swung open, revealing a corridor draped in shadows. Jess hesitated at the threshold, her breath hitching in her throat. The musty air creeped around her like a lover's touch, both familiar and foreboding. Ethan tugged at her sleeve, eyes wide, reflecting the distant flickering light that danced down the passageway. "Mom, what's in there?" he whispered, a quaver of trepidation threading through his voice. Jess swallowed hard, courage mingling with dread. "I don't know, sweetheart. But we can't stay here." She forced one foot in, gripping Ethan's hand like a lifeline, and stepped into the corridor. As they moved deeper, the shadows seemed to pulse, drawing back as if inhaling, then rushing forward, seeking dominion. With each step the glow from the crumpled paper flickered more erratically, illuminating glimpses of peeling wallpaper and cracked tiles beneath their feet. A chill enveloped them, a reminder that they weren't alone. Jess glanced over her shoulder, but only darkness rolled back, the door creaking ominously as it swung shut behind them. "Keep going," she urged, pressing Ethan forward. They walked in silence, every subtle sound amplifying each creak of the floorboards. Every rustle of fabric felt like whispers in the night. She could feel eyes on them, each shadow a lurking monster, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The corridor branched into two, one path seemingly more inviting with a dim light glowing at its end, while the other receded into a deeper darkness that dripped with malice. Jess hesitated, torn. Something inside screamed to choose the light, but the shadows beckoned with a promise that sent shivers up her spine. "Mom, we should go to the light." Ethan's voice broke through her hesitation, an edge of desperation coloring his tone. Yes, the light, Jess agreed, but fear gnawed at her insides. What if it was an illusion? Yet, the chilling whispers behind her grew in intensity, riling shadows that twisted and reached for them. With a wavering resolve, they moved toward the light, each step weighted by the palpable fear of what waited behind. As they approached, it transformed into a doorway framed by glimmering details that felt almost inviting, yet Jess sensed the deceit beneath the surface. The moment they crossed the threshold, the atmosphere shifted. The warmth of the light faded into an icy chill. The room was vast, a cavernous space lined with towering shelves stuffed with dusty books. A great wooden desk rested in the center, papers scattered as if someone had fled in haste. "Look, Mom!" Ethan exclaimed, pointing to a faded photograph dangling from the wall. It depicted children playing in a sunlit schoolyard, the scene alive with laughter that felt tarnished, haunted. As Jess stepped closer, something shifted behind her. The slick shadows coiled tighter around their ankles. Out of the corner of her eye, Jess saw a movement, a flicker, like someone lurking just out of sight. Panic shot through her veins. "Ethan, stay close," she commanded, spinning to scan their surroundings. Dark figures emerged from the shadows, their faces hidden, but their glares pierced through the mist, intent on them. "Who are they?" Ethan whispered, trembling. "Spirits, perhaps," Jess replied, her voice trembling too. "Or memories." The words felt heavy, the burden of the truth sinking deep into her chest. As she turned to face the figures, she caught a glimpse of ice-blue eyes staring back at her from one of the shadows. Recognition hit like a brick. "Margaret," she breathed, connecting the dots of her fractured past. "It's you, isn't it?" With the mention of the name, a shudder traveled through the figures, their whispers rising into an agitated frenzy, fueling the darkness around them. The walls of the room seemed to close in, the shelves swaying with an otherworldly life. "Mom, I'm scared," Ethan cried, squeezing her hand tighter. Jess retrieved the glowing paper from her pocket, desperate for clarity, a lifeline. "What do you want from us?" she shouted, her voice ringing against the sorrowful echoes. The shadows quivered, the air thick with tension. Then, as if in answer, the figures advanced slowly, their intentions unclear, but the aura of despair thickened suffocatingly around them. "What if they don't want to let us go?" Jess thought, heart racing. The glow of the paper dimmed, and fear crept back in, solid and chilling as the shadows threatened to engulf them entirely. "Remember, Jess, they need something from you," she recalled the voice in her head, sharper than any previous whisper. But what was it? Jess's mind flashed back to the photograph on the wall. Something vital, buried like their family's secrets, swirled in the depths of her memory. Maybe the connection was deeper than she thought. Perhaps, just perhaps, there was a way to confront this nightmare. "Let us find out what it is," she whispered mostly to herself, determination lacing through the dread. But just as she steeled herself to step forward, a shadow lunged, the air thickening with malignant intent. Jess realized they might not just be facing shadows. They were confronted with the consequences of forgotten sins, and their family story was just beginning to unravel. What horror awaits in the obscure depths of their past? Would confronting Margaret help set them free or lead them further into despair? The shadows surged forward, billowing like dark smoke, and Jess's heart raced violently in her chest. She could barely think it was pure instinct now, a primal need to survive. Ethan squeezed her hand tighter, his small body trembling violently against hers. "Run!" she yelled, her voice cracking under the weight of fear. She pulled Ethan toward the towering shelves, weaving through the labyrinth of books, her every instinct screaming at her to escape. The chilling whispers surrounded them like a storm, indistinct yet maddening, growing louder with each frantic step. "Margaret, Margaret," they hissed, drawing closer. Jess could feel the pull of the shadows, as if they themselves sought to snare her away into oblivion. Out of breath and desperate, Jess yanked open one of the nearest shelves, hoping to find a weapon, a shield, anything. Dust exploded into the air, and a few books toppled out, their covers dying in silence on the ground. But she didn't care, she needed to find something. Anything that could help pry them free from this torment. "Mom, please!" Ethan cried out, tears streaking down his cheeks. Her heart broke at the sight of her son, trapped in this nightmare too. "Just hold on," she shouted back, forcing herself to focus. Suddenly, she caught sight of something sharp protruding from a book that had fallen. It was a dagger with an intricate hilt, marked with runes she couldn't comprehend. The weight of the weapon felt reassuring, grounding her in the overwhelming dread. "Stay behind me." When she turned to face the approaching figures, the fear in her chest morphed into something like resolve. She gripped the dagger tightly, hoping it would serve as more than just a symbol of courage. The figures halted, shadows flickering around them, curling as if alive. Jess could see their faces, even in the dim light, a twisting mass of despair and rage, and at their center, the ice-blue eyes locked on her. Margaret's presence radiated power, an aura of grief and unending torment that nearly paralyzed Jess. "Why are you here?" Jess shouted, her voice ringing through the cavernous room. "What do you want from us?" The shadows seemed to recoil slightly, the figures shifting in agitation. The whispers intensified, swirling around the room and setting her unease into a frenzy. "You need to remember," one voice sliced through the cacophony, sharp and clear, freezing Jess in place. "Remember." The word echoed in her mind, striking a painful chord. It led her back to the photograph, the children playing under the sun, their laughter a stark contrast to the encroaching darkness. Memories long buried drifted into view, distorting into shapes she once loved but could hardly recognize now. "Did you hurt them?" Jess's voice trembled. "Was it you who caused this?" A burst of rage erupted from the shadows as if her words struck a nerve. The figures lunged forward, and Jess instinctively raised the dagger, the gleaming blade reflecting her wide, terrified eyes. "What secret binds you here?" she pressed, desperation clawing at her throat. "Tell me." With one swift motion, the shadows coiled tighter at Ethan's feet, dragging him away, and Jess's heart plummeted. "Ethan!" she screamed, her body moving before her mind caught up. She dashed forward, every desperate ounce of love fueling her. The air pulsated, visions swirling in kaleidoscopic dreams, laughter twisted by sorrow, a family's scar torn by bitterness. She felt a weight pressing down as the shadows fought her grasp. Ghostly hands tugged at her clothes, urging her toward grief. Just then, the glowing paper flickered back to life in her pocket, radiating warmth against the cold dread. She tore it from the fabric, brandishing it toward the advancing shadows like a beacon of hope. "I won't let you take him," Jess yelled, heart pounding. "I choose to remember. I will remember." A silence blanketed the room, the shadows hesitating, as if unsure what to do next. Jess could feel the tug of their dark past, threatening to consume her, but her resolve burned hotter. The history she had buried wouldn't destroy her, she would face it head-on. The shadows darted closer, a chilling truth hit her like ice water. If she unleashed the memories written in the glow of that paper, would they unveil their long-hidden secrets, or plunge her deeper into this dark abyss? "Bring it on," she whispered fiercely, clutching Ethan tight. "Let us finish this. What unspeakable truths will she uncover? And will she and Ethan manage to survive their own history, or will they drown in the darkness of their family's past?" Jess stood at the edge of the abyss, every heartbeat echoing the thunderous dread that gripped her. The shadows loomed, swirling with a malevolence that clawed at her resolve. She could feel the weight of history pouring out, every dark secret hungry for release. With Ethan at her side, the fear in his eyes fueling her fury, she stepped forward, brandishing the glowing paper like a talisman against the encroaching darkness. "I remember!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the whispers that threatened to drown them. The shadows hesitated, recoiling as if her words carried weighty truth. "I remember everything." Images flooded her mind, the joyous laughter of children, the sweetness of simpler times, painful memories hidden in cobwebbed corners of her soul. Margaret Clarkson, a name that felt like poison on her tongue. Her grandmother had warned her about the girl who vanished, a mystery that had been sewn tight with sorrow and fear, but Jess now understood. It was more than a story, it was a warning, and the cycle of despair her family had carried must end now. A flicker of recognition ignited in the dim light as the shadows shimmered, transforming into the likeness of the lost children, a cacophony of lost hope and betrayal swirling around her. I didn't know, but I will learn, Jess declared defiantly. I will break this curse, for you all. Suddenly, the figures swarmed forward, their faces twisted with sorrow that flared and dimmed like candlelight. Ethan whimpered beside her, and Jess could feel his fear wrapping around her like chains, but she drew strength from his presence. Stay behind me, kiddo, she commanded, positioning herself as a shield. Mom, Ethan whimpered, but Jess cut him off, adrenaline surging, igniting her courage. No time for fear. We fight for the truth. With a defiant shout, she thrust the glowing paper into the air, illuminating the shadows with a fierce light. The figures recoiled, murmuring among themselves, as if debating whether to draw back or attack. I locked with Margaret's haunting gaze. Jess felt both fear and understanding resonate. What do you want? Why are you still here? She demanded, desperation lacing her voice. Find the truth, the chorus whispered, a tragic harmony reverberating against the walls, or be lost with us forever. It was a battle of wills. Jess closed her eyes for a moment, breathing deep to quiet the storm within. What truth? It was buried deep in the ground they stood upon, like a seed waiting for water to grow into understanding. Maybe the answer is not just about you, she blurted. Maybe it's about facing the pain we've all endured. In that moment, a surge of energy pulsed through her, the glow of the paper bathing the room, illuminating her reflection in it, she, the daughter, the mother. I want to let fear win, Jess declared, embodying every ounce of strength she had. I want to help you find peace, like you gave us pain. As if hearing her, the shadows shifted. The faces floated through the murk, twisting, swirling like the wind chasing leaves. Jess's heart raced. What do I need to reveal? What buried truths hold you here? She cried, half in anger, half in desperation. The air thickened, the very fabric of reality buzzing with tension. She could see the figures visibly wavering, conflict raging within them, a choice. They could remain bound to the darkness, victims forever, or choose to confront the evils of their shared past. Mom? Ethan's small voice broke through her concentration. His eyes shone bright, an unwavering beacon in the dark. What if we release them? Release them how? Jess wondered aloud, the pieces of the puzzle slowly coming together. She grabbed Ethan's hand tighter, their fingers interlocking with a mutual understanding. We need to share what we know, our stories intertwined. We choose to forgive ourselves and them. Then, with newfound strength, Jess held the paper high above her head, the light illuminating the growing courage within her. We choose to remember out loud. Margaret Clarkson and all of you, your stories deserve to be known. In that moment of vulnerability and honesty, a wave of energy erupted around them, shaking the very ground beneath their feet. Deep, ancient anger and sorrow intertwining with resolve surged forward. The shadows suddenly surged back, swirling violently, transforming from menacing to mournful. One by one, the figures began stepping forward, the sharp outlines softening as they drew closer, almost embracing her words. We are not just fears, we are memories, Margaret's voice echoed, rising above the tumult around them. As Jess and Ethan shared the shared truths of pain, loss, love, and forgiveness, the shadows began to dissolve, their edges flickering like flames dancing in the wind. Each name reverberated through the room with palpable release. The shadows began to tremble, crying out in echoes of grief and relief. Margaret! Amy! Kyle! Jess called out, weaving together the truth of their stories into a tapestry of light. The words filled the space with warmth, igniting a cascade of brilliance that shattered the lingering darkness. You were not forgotten! We release you! With every name spoken, the shadows lost their hold, their anguished cries transforming into soft sighs. The air grew lighter, the figures shimmered, their faces filling with warmth and color as freedom enveloped them like wings unfurling. Finally, in a blinding flash, the chorus of troubled souls burst forth, each one releasing their claim to the diner, the darkness, and their sorrows, echoing one last promise of peace. In the wake of it all, the diner felt different. The cold darkness that had once threatened to consume them now shimmered with echoes of laughter and stories long forgotten. Jess turned, knowing that the curse was broken, and the weight of sorrow had been lifted. Ethan looked up at her with wide eyes, relief flooding his expression. "Mom, we did it!" "Yes, we did," she breathed, pulling him into an embrace, warmth flooding her heart. "We're safe now." As they walked back toward the door that had once trapped them, Jess looked up at the silhouettes of the lost children fading into the light. Freedom had come at a price, but they had all managed to break the chains binding them to the past. And just as they stepped into the night air, the dark shadows that once cornered them dissipated, leaving only echoes of hope and freedom behind. Together they would embark on a brighter, new chapter, hand in hand, knowing that they had confronted the darkness and emerged stronger. Now, they could build a future filled with the laughter of what truly mattered: family, truth, and forgiveness. Stepping back onto Maple Street, Jess knew the ghosts could finally rest, and every flicker of memory would serve as a guide instead of a weight. As they walked away, the diner stood silent, at peace for the first time in decades. The light within flickered one last time, then stayed steady, marking the dawn of a new beginning. This is your chance to join the journey. You need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that dive deep into the unknown. Smash the like button to feed the algorithm so we can keep bringing you these wild tales. Flood the comments with your reactions and theories about this wild ride. Let us discuss your thoughts. And if you care about your friends, share this video with at least 5 of them who really need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. Your support means the world and makes this community stronger.